Not a problem. Episode 2, Season 2.
These guys.
2.
That's it.
2.
Yeah, we're gonna get the Bills Bowl conversation because
We're not good at small talk.
that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Let's just get into it.
A lot of them in there.
What do we got?
Uh-huh.
We can look at the CE office on a Friday afternoon.
Why not?
Quite look like that, but
Whatever.
a joke. Take it.
Feel
No
it.
problem. Leave
Black
that.
guy, yeah. Let's do this one. Good idea. We could listen to a little Michelle Branch.
I can take you away from here. So lonely and
It's a good thing.
Yeah. It's a good thing right there. That is.
And oh baby, who do we got? The topic is going to be, these are suggested by the viewers. No, they're not, but they should be. Suggest topics. Are humans inherently greedy?
Going deep.
It's a giver.
This is the biggest decision of my life. I really like Giuseppe because he's really open and kind, and I also really like Marcus though because he's also really kind and open, Pretty much the worst thing that could happen is if I pick the wrong one and he leaves me standing there by myself.
Okay, so I have a feeling that the inspiration for this whole topic,
Yeah.
suggested by Bill, probably came about from a little piece that was put together earlier this week based off a video. We both saw it. It talks about this social experiment that this group in LA kind of put together,
Yep.
where they basically built their own bulletin board. They brought it to a busy LA subway station. They set it up using the whole methodology of give a penny, take a penny type thing, except using a bill. So they put up $40 worth of singles, and there was a couple of fives I think spattered within there as well. And they basically encourage people to interact with the board, take what they need, and also put up anything that they may have to spare or to assist in kind of like a true community type activity.
Yep.
And the experiment did relatively well, at least based on the way the video presented itself to be. Did it ultimately eventually run out? Absolutely. But there was good interaction with it on both sides. There were people that were taking from it and not taking everything, even though they probably could have used it in some cases. And there were also people contributing to it and doing something that without that board, they probably would have never done.
Right, and so I think what this does is it brings up that question. Since the board went empty, are humans always going to take more than what they give? Or are we inherently greedy in that sense because, we're taking and, we're just not able to give enough back? One interesting point off the top is that when you think about who's giving, you saw a lot of different people giving, but when you think about who was taking, a lot of the times it was sort of the lesser fortunate people. And right away, because you looked at the comments, and there was a lot of ruthlessness.
Those motherfuckers!
There was a lot of people
Always is.
just ripping at this thing, like, humans are terrible, they're always going to take more. But for the less fortunate people that aren't going to be able to come back and put more money back on that thing, can we really say that, people are always going to take more than they give just because they weren't able to actually come back? Was it the more well-off people who were actually taking and not putting anything back?
That's interesting social comment. That's an interesting point you make there because I think based on the way the video presented it, it was a lot of people that, based on the way they presented themselves, seemed like they were in need of it.
Yeah.
And I think that just as much as you can pinpoint on them for being, let's say, oh, you know what, there's more of that in the world than there are people who are going to put up with it, the fact that those people didn't take everything, as I briefly mentioned before, kind of shows that we're not as greedy as we might put ourselves up to be. And you can't look at the whole experiment and the end result as like, yes, that's a fact then that we take more than we actually give in this world. Because I'm sure, and yeah, maybe the camera being there could have influenced it as well, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that could have used a lot more than even $40.
Absolutely. And let's look at, there's another scenario where this happened.
Yeah.
And I believe it was Philadelphia.
Yes.
There was a pizza shop who did, I think somebody decided they were going to purchase like a meal or something for somebody. They put it up on a board, and it was like anytime anybody came in and really didn't have the money and needed that meal, they would be able to pull off that item and say, okay, I want the pizza slice, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, that experiment, what ended up happening was that board was there in the pizza shop. And every time people would come in, we'd be like, oh, what's that? And they would add to it, and people would add to it. And every now and then people would come and be like, oh, I want a pop today, or I want this. And so they would essentially be redeeming an already paid for item. Yeah. And that board's still there today.
It's huge. It was featured on Ellen, how big it got, and how it was all by accident, in the sense of somebody just wanted to do a nice gesture for a homeless person outside,
right?
And then everyone caught on, because we all have this nature of wanting to assist people when we can. It just needs to be instigated some way.
Absolutely.
You know, just the way the people donated to the bulletin board in the LA subway, they just needed to be instigated for them to think about even doing that.
So what do you think? What do you think it is that makes people, like, why do we need to be instigated? Why can't we just do it? Why? What is it about us that? Because it seems inherent. I would say, to answer today's question, I don't think personally that humans are inherently greedy. I think it's more of a cultural thing.
Yeah.
But what do you think people need inside to be like, all right, yeah, I want to go do this?
I personally think that instead of being an inherent greed, it's inherent self-consciousness.
Right.
That people are so concerned about how people are going to perceive them doing anything that stops them from taking action and from starting things, and rather than when it's put out on a platter for them. Because when it's out that way and they feel comfortable and there's people socially accepting and supporting what they're going to do, they'll do it openly. We're giving, we're loving when it's set up for us. Mm-hmm. So if we can overcome this self-consciousness instead, then I think that we'll more clearly see that we're actually not greedy. We do have a lot to give and offer, and we want to do that for one another.
All right, I'm going to challenge that a little bit with this. So here's a charity then who decides they're going to go and they're going to do something. Mm-hmm. And let's, for the sake of it, because it's actually a real easy one to pick on, we'll pick on the cancer charity, the Pink Ribbon. Sure. So here they are, they're outwardly doing cancer-related things, yet 80% of what they raise, or somewhere in that area, goes nowhere near anything having to do with cancer, but it all actually goes back to their business.
Yeah. What the heck are you talking about?
So what happens there?
Well? What was the question again?
It's a good point. I think the thing that to focus on whenever people talk to me about stuff like that, because obviously I'm not going to deny those facts. Mm-hmm. I've read the same stuff that you have. But I think that within those organizations, aside from the people at the top who are maybe dictating how it's being divided, there's always good people within them. There's always people like the key fundraisers or the volunteers and stuff. They always have the best intentions.
Yeah.
They always are doing that because they genuinely think it's going to assist humanity and do good for people that are suffering from whatever the case may be in regards to the charity itself. So I think if you focus on those people instead and not the rotten apples per se on the top, you'll see that there's still this inherent desire to assist one another, this inherent ability to live in a community type setting. And if properly guided and if properly, notified on how things actually are and where things are, I think people would work to be a part of the things that are actually going to fully assist. Yep. And there's good people within it that are always looking to actually be a part of that stuff.
So it sounds like it's coming, again, we're coming back to a cultural thing.
Yes.
We exist in this culture that is like very self-centered in a sense, or it's self-conscious, or we're thinking about ourselves a lot. We're not thinking about the community. And arguably this experiment challenges that community may not work. I don't know. I tend to think that it does, and I think we've seen that in a lot of different scenarios out in the world, but I think a lot of it just us having to go beyond the culture. What our culture is burning into us as everybody's an enemy, everybody's going to take from you, everybody's going to steal from you. These are the sorts of things, and you see that in the comments that people are very ruthless about oh yeah, the world is always against me, and the world is always trying to do something to me, and just don't let that be who you are and how you shape community. Like, actually allow yourself to feel and feed that inherent desire inside of you to do good and to do things that are valuable for people. Because like you said, most people involved in these things are inherently very interested in making the world a better place.
For sure.
It's just when we get to the cultural business side of it that gets a little bit nasty.
Yeah. And let us know what you think. I'd love to know your perspective on this thing. Do you actually think that we are inherently greedy? Let us know.
Yeah.
This is just us giving us our opinion towards it.
Yeah. That's it. That's all.
And that's what we did in this episode, which is now done.
Already?
We've done them. But it's been these guys.
It's been these guys.
Until episode 3.
Until episode 3.
That's where your arm flail off the top. Let's do one more. Let's have a safe one.
Did you know that there are people in there?
No.